of like sobriety, being sober curious. And I think it's always, for me in my younger years, it was down to peer pressure a lot of the time. And I'm sure you've had similar experiences. And I didn't realize until like looking at people on social media and people coming out about being sober that there was so many people that were doing it.
Yeah.
And I put on Instagram like asking people that like were sober curious or they were sober if they had any questions. And so many people were like, what is sober curious and what does it mean to be sober?
Yeah. So sober curious was actually a term coined by Ruby Warrington. So she wrote the book Sober Curious. So some people think it means like, oh, I'm curious about being full-time sober. But actually the way that she says it is like, you will be sober curious as a permanent state. So you will never be like fully teetotal, but you will be more mindful about your drinking habits. You'll constantly like reassess. You might take a few weeks off and, you know, see how you feel before you plow on to the next drink. So she kind of has it as like a default state. So even if you're just like a bit curious about your relationship with alcohol, then you are sober curious. Even if you're like listening to this podcast because you're like, oh, I want to hear about that, then you are sober curious.
Oh, I didn't know that. So technically I'm sober curious then.
Yeah, because you said like you've had breaks and you've taken time off. So yeah, I would say you were someone who's sober curious for sure.
I did not know that's what it meant. I thought it was like you were literally just in the stages of going completely teetotal and that was it.
Yeah, which I think is how a lot of people are using it now. I think it's a term that's kind of come into our society and we've almost adapted it and changed it. But technically where the origin is that it's like a permanent state.
You learn something new every day.
See, you can start telling people you're sober curious now.
I know, but do you know what? I feel like I tick so many boxes of like random things already. Just adding stuff to her list. You've been sober for over 5 years now, right?
Yeah.
And I can imagine like you're still so young that you probably get so many comments and things like that. And I think one of the things that I love about Instagram is that it's easy to like find your tribe and find people that are also like you. But I guess back when you were becoming sober, probably not so much.
Yeah, which I always say is the whole reason I started Sober Girl Society, really. Like it was kind of from a selfish perspective because when I stopped drinking, I did not know a single other sober person. And I had so many like questions around it. And it was like, oh, I'm going on a date. When do I tell them? Or does anyone know of like a good alcohol-free drink that I can make? And I just didn't have anyone to talk to about it. So I was like 7 months sober and I looked everywhere online and I found a lot of like recovery communities and obviously there's like AA, but my kind of drinking, I didn't, and I know a lot about AA now. I have a lot of friends who have been through the program, swear by the program. But at the time, all I knew about AA was that it was like how it's depicted on screen.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to go into a room, it's going to be 50-year-old men and they're going to laugh at me when I say, actually, I can go a few weeks without drinking. But when I do drink, I just binge drink into oblivion. So I didn't have like a community. So I looked around, looked on Instagram, couldn't find anything. And I thought, well, you know, I know how to use Instagram, that's cool. And like kind of at the same time I was working in journalism and I'd started writing pieces about sobriety. So I started just like putting them into the community, being like, oh, does anyone relate to this? And I thought maybe, 10 of us will meet up and then that'll be it. And it just snowballed. Like it just, I don't know what it was. People are like, oh, how did it grow so quickly? And I'm like, I just think there was nothing else out there. So if I felt like I needed it, then other people must have needed it too.
Yeah, because I feel like if you say to somebody, I'm sober because I went through an AA program, I feel like it's more socially acceptable to be like, yeah, actually, okay, I'm going to accept that you're sober. Whereas if you're doing it by choice, they probably don't accept it the same way. Like I remember back when you were becoming sober, I was working in Westminster and I remember the person that's sitting a couple of desks behind me reading the paper about how young people were becoming sober, drinking less, taking less drugs, going to the gym, spending more money in Whole Foods. And the comment was, young people just don't know how to have fun anymore.
Yeah, which is so wild because I just don't know where, well, I do know where that comes from because we have such a strong cultural bond with alcohol and we can't imagine having fun without it, which was one of, I think, my biggest discoveries and shocks as well, that actually I was still fun and I still enjoy doing all the same things, which, yeah, that is one of the biggest stigmas that I'd like to get rid of, that sobriety is boring, for sure.
Yeah, I think, I've had lots of different questions that people wanted to ask you about sobriety and about how you manage different aspects of your life. And I guess one of the things is about, well, we can go through managing like events and like wanting to go to places like festivals and stuff where you're surrounded by alcohol. What was it like the first time you went to something like that, being sober?
Yeah, so I always say I'm like quite stubborn. So when I stopped drinking, all my friends are like, you're going to be so boring, it's really lame. And I kind of went, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. So like my first night out, I was literally like a week sober, and it was my friend's birthday. We went out in Shoreditch, and people were like dropping out throughout the night. Like 1 o'clock, one of our friends would like say bye. And I was like, I have to be the last person here just to prove a point. So I'm there, 4 o'clock. It's just me and my friend who it's her birthday. She's like leaving her presents everywhere. I'm like going around scurrying up like after her. And I was like, I just have to do this. And actually, I don't recommend it to everyone, because I think sometimes you need to ease yourself in. But for me, it was actually such a good like baptism by fire, because I was like, do you know what? If I can do this, like taking my friend to get cheesy chips at 5 a.m, like completely stone cold sober, I was like, I think I can do anything. So like in a way, it was such a good thing, but it is a complete culture shock doing something like that sober.
I'm just wondering how you managed to stay awake.
Honestly,
until 5 a.m.
Pounding the Red Bull, like absolutely pounding the Red Bull. I think the next day I still woke up like jittery because I'd had so much caffeine.
But was it hard to manage your friendships going into that transition of being like the fun party girl to being completely sober?
Yeah, I think so. Like as a personal thing, I think my identity was so wrapped up in like being the party girl. It was like, oh, we're going out, let's like, Millie will definitely be up for it. I was always the friend that you would like call if you wanted a night out. So that like as a personal thing was really difficult, but also trying to explain it to other people. And I think my friends, I always say, were really like ambivalent at the beginning, because I told them, we've all said it, I'm never drinking again. Like I must have said it thousands of times. So I said, I'm not drinking anymore, and they were like, yeah, all right. And
we'll see you next week.
Yeah. And I think it kind of got a few months down the line. And I always say, like, I went on holiday with my friend Shah, and she said to me, oh, but you're going to drink, aren't you, when we're away? And I was like, no. And then you just kind of saw the realization like dawn on her face that actually this might be like a permanent thing. And then I think by that point it was almost too late. They'd seen that I was happier, they'd seen that I was healthier, they'd seen me on nights out that I could still do all the same things. So by that point they were kind of like, oh, just let her get on with it. But I think some of my relationships definitely did change with people, but I think on the whole I was actually quite lucky. Yeah,
because I think that I've had a couple of stints where I've been completely sober, and in my earlier 20s I lost all of those friends because, you know, they were going through their uni phase, all of that party and stuff, whereas I was just like, no, I'm not doing it. And I mean, it was fun at times when I was going home with more money than I went out with, because I was everyone's taxi, but they didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that scares a lot of people from jumping in is that they don't want to lose the friends they have.
Yeah.
Or like, what do they do if the people they surround themselves with don't get it?
Yeah. And I totally understand that. And I think people don't necessarily have to get it, but they just have to respect it. Like there's things that my friends do, or like hobbies. My friend ran a half marathon this weekend. I don't get it. Like marathon's just not for me. I'm like, you hate it every minute. Like it's so painful.
I can confirm.
Like you've done a marathon. I no, it's not for me. I don't understand it, but I respect it. And I text her, say, you know, congratulations, that's incredible. Like so proud of you. And they do the same when I like hit any milestones. I don't think you have to necessarily get it to respect it.
I think as well one thing as well that I would put out there, for me, the friends that I've lost, or like bits where I've been sober and realizing that I don't like the people that I used to hang out with when I was drunk, it just means you keep better friends, better company, and you don't have to force yourself to be people you don't actually like.
Exactly. The quality is better even if the quantity goes down, because I think you actually connect with people that you really have things with in common. I think that's like another benefit of dating. When I was drinking, I would go on dates with anyone and be like, I had a great time. It's just because I was drunk. Like sober dating was a revelation for me for actually working out like who I could have a good conversation with and who I could connect with. So it makes those like conversations much better, I think.
Yeah, actually, now like you said that, I remember like the last person I dated properly was back in December.
Yeah.
And our second date was so good. I was drunk.
Yeah.
The day afterwards, I was like, I really don't like you.
Yeah. I would fall in love with anyone when I'd had like enough gin. I would go home to my mum and be like, they're the one, buy a hat.
Get married.
We'd go out on the weekend sober and I'd be like, they are so fucking boring. Like, I just don't know what was going through my head, but it does. It can do that to you.
Do you think it puts people off wanting to go on a date with you if you tell them you're sober?
Yeah, I think it has done, but I do think things are changing. So when I first stopped drinking, like 5 years ago, I was single. And when I would tell a lot of people, like before a date, their replies weren't always nice, I think. Like some of them were like, well, okay, well, how do we even have fun? I remember one guy actually said to me, how would I get into your knickers if you don't drink? And I was like, that is
Predatory
creepy.
behaviour, that. Oh my
creepy
God.
and shocking. So definitely that was awful. But I then was single again, like 3 years later, went back on the apps. And actually a lot of people seem to be more respectful. It's almost like it has really kind of gone a bit more into the mainstream, and everyone seemed to like know someone who didn't drink. They'd be like, oh, that's cool, like my brother doesn't drink, or I've been thinking about cutting down. Like it does seem to be getting better, but I mean you still get the people that are like, oh God, how boring. But again, it's, I think, quality over quantity. Like why would I ever want to be with someone that doesn't support me making choices that do not affect them in any way, that make my life better and make me happier? Like that's going to be the type of person that is going to be like, oh, why are you going to the gym, or like just anything. So I'm like, that is not the type of person I want. Someone open-minded, like on board with it, and they don't have to be sober. Again, they've just got to get that you are.
I guess it means that they have to make, well, both of you have to make more effort to find things that are enjoyable outside of alcohol, right?
Yeah, definitely. It actually, I think on first dates, it forced people to get quite creative and be like, oh, okay, well, if you don't drink, like I went on like kayaking first dates, and I always say I'm like a pro at mini golf now because I've been so many times.
I'm dangerous at mini golf, like I've learned that, and I think that might be the booze.
Yeah.
But so are you single now?
No, in a relationship.
When you first told them what it was like,
yeah,
what was their response?
They were actually so good about it. Like that, it just, I think this is the thing as well. I don't think I could be with someone whose like life is wrapped up in partying and drinking, just because I don't think we would have as much in common. Like they don't have to be teetotal by any stretch, but as long as they're kind of, I don't know, on a Sunday they actually like getting up and doing stuff rather than just like being in bed hungover. So when I kind of told them about it, they weren't really a big drinker anyway, so they weren't really like as bothered. Like they play football and like that's important, and not being really hungover. So we were more aligned on that respect.
I think that's we were having a little bit of a conversation like off camera about when you're trying to navigate dating when you're sober, when it comes to things like consent. I did read like snippets in your book about how one of the realizations that you needed to change your relationship with alcohol was that you were in a blackout state having an intimate relationship with a stranger.
Yeah.
And like that's terrifying.
Yeah, when you wake up and you're like, I have no recollection. And it's such a hard topic because if you then bring alcohol into the conversation, you kind of, in a way, victim shaming, because you're saying you drank so much. I also know that in a blackout, you can dance, you can speak to people, you can do all these things and have no recollection about it. So for me, like the consent lines were so blurry. Like the next day of being like, I actually don't remember if I consented, but actually I could have. Like it's such a hard conversation to navigate. And I think what we need is more like awareness around alcohol and how it affects your brain. Like I was saying to you off camera, with kind of why you don't remember things, a lot of the time alcohol interferes with putting things from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So it's not that you've forgotten those things, it's actually those memories were never processed, so they weren't put into your brain. So try as hard as you might, the next day you will not remember them. So it's about understanding those things and then being able to make a choice about how much you want to drink.
Yeah, because I guess in those situations, like neither party are to blame.
Yeah.
Especially if the other person's also been drinking.
Yeah.
And it's not nice to know that about yourself.
Yeah, there's the conversation around consent and alcohol is so tricky because there is an argument that if you are drinking any amount, you cannot consent fully because alcohol affects your brain it affects your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for rational decision making, emotional response, weighing up right or wrong. So what you might agree to when you're sober is maybe not what you might agree to when you're drinking, and vice versa. So it's such a tricky conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's how I learned the hard way, that the first time I'd be intimate with somebody, I have to be sober. Like I was saying to you about how I went on a date with somebody, I was drunk, they weren't the first time we were intimate. A little bit of a red flag, but I was agreeing and consenting to things that were way outside of my boundaries and that I wouldn't do sober, so that the first time we slept together sober, they thought that was fine. And it's not their fault because technically I agreed to it. you should ask for consent every time before
Yeah.
you do certain things. But yeah, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay with me. And then how do you approach that conversation?
Yeah, you have to, like you said, kind of every time you need to do that. And that's one of the things that I've found now, like not drinking, it's so much easier because you don't let people cross your boundaries. And I think just in like life generally, like even outside of the bedroom, not drinking has made me so good at boundaries because I'm so used to disappointing people now. I'm so used to people being like,
That's really sad way of putting it.
But it is like so many people, if like I say, oh, I'm not drinking, they're like, oh, come on, it's my birthday. And I mean, luckily I don't get it as much now because they're just used to it and they can't put their energy into trying. But at the beginning, I think I was so used to people being like, oh, okay, fine, that actually I got better at being like less of a people pleaser in life generally. I'd start saying no to things I didn't want to do because I was getting used to, for the first time in my life, not just going along with it and just drinking because I thought that people would like me if I was a drinker and I was the party girl and I was fun. So it just made me a bit more boundaried in my life in general.
Talking about boundaries, with British culture, obviously there's a big culture around booze, but there's also a big culture around booze in the workplace.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how we both said that we were in industries where booze was so prominent.
Yeah.
But it's prominent in every industry, I guess, in some aspects, one way or another.
100%. I've started doing like workplace talks. Well, I've been doing them for a few years, but the demand wasn't ever really that high. And then this year I've been booked to do so many. And it's everyone I speak to, they're like, oh, my industry is really boozy. I've yet to meet someone who is like, oh, my industry is not boozy at all. Like, it just seems to be everywhere, like healthcare professions, like teaching. Every industry seems to have kind of like that element to it. And I think it's so ingrained in how we like network and socialize. And yeah, it's just so hard. I think, especially like you said with British culture, I think we also think that being a drinker is actually part of being British. Like it's so tied up in our like cultural identity that it's really hard to untangle.
Yeah, because I think people don't realise that even if you're not drinking on the job, it can still be a massive part of like work culture. And I think I've been guilty of it in the past, like where I've managed a team and been like, okay, we're going to socialise after work, we're going to the pub.
Yeah.
And I think now that I'm older and I've really deeped it, and I was like, the people that don't drink probably felt really excluded.
Yeah.
And that was really bad of me as a manager. And I think that's, now I feel comfortable talking about it. I want other people to realise, oh yeah, maybe they're not doing right by their colleagues if they're excluding people.
Yeah. And you don't have to take alcohol away. It's just about like putting on more things that everyone can do. So I don't know, like going to like a flight club or something like that where there's an option to drink, but also there's a fun activity if you're a non-drinker. I think it's just about varying it and shaking it up because there's also so many reasons why people don't drink. Religious reasons, medication, like pregnancy. There's so many reasons why people in the workplace wouldn't be drinking that it's important, I think, to have that like diversity of activities.
Talking about pregnancy,
Yes.
quite a lot of women on my Instagram are like, how do I stay sober without people asking me if I'm pregnant?
Yeah, do you know what? It's so hard. I actually once got congratulated. So I ordered a mocktail at a restaurant, and the guy came over, the waiter came over, gave it to me and said, congratulations. And my boyfriend at the time went, oh my God, how does he know you're like sober? Like he thought he was congratulating me on like being sober, which is such a like male perspective. And I was
that's
like,
so innocent and sweet.
I was like, no, he's saying congratulations on being pregnant. Like it just happens. Do you know what? My only kind of method now of dealing with it is just like accepting it. So like if I'm at a party and I'm not drinking and someone's like, oh my God, are you pregnant? I'm like, yeah, can I sit down on your chair? Because, you know, I've got a load of, it's the only way I can
make it
do
work
it
for
now.
you, haven't you?
Yeah, but it's so hard and it can be so triggering for so many people. Like I just can laugh it off now. But a lot of people stop drinking when they're trying for a baby. Like it's one of the things doctors recommend if you're finding it hard to get pregnant. It's also, you know, like a lot of people that might have had a miscarriage afterwards because they're going through so much. They're like, okay, I'm not going to drink because, you know, that's when I'm going to probably end up crying about it. So there's so many like, it's not just asking people if they're pregnant. It's actually quite a triggering question for like a lot of people. So if you're not sure, just never ask someone if they're pregnant.
It's just a bit rude, isn't it? It's like you wouldn't go up to a random person and be like, congratulations, and it's their weight.
Yeah.
Like you just don't say anything.
Yeah.
I have had that once though with coffee.
Oh,
I was ordering a coffee and someone asked me if I was pregnant. I was like, what's that to do with you?
Yeah.
So I just feel like as a woman, you're going to get that everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So you might as well do it in a situation that you feel like you're in control.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, to be fair, a lot of the people that have been talking to me about being sober curious and looking into sobriety are very, very young, like 18, 19.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the questions that people really wanted to know is like, what would you say to the younger version of yourself that's maybe at university or just graduated, that was the party girl?
Yeah.
What do you think you would say to her, and what do you think her reaction would be to know that older her was sober?
If she knew that I was sober when I was 19, she would think I was so lame, like the worst person, because I was such a party girl, and anyone who didn't drink, I was like, they are a total loser. So that is such an extreme thing, and I think that's also why I really believe that people can change, because I'm like, if I look back on the person I was when I was 19, she's a whole entirely different person. But I think I would probably just tell my younger self that like, people don't love you because you're a party girl, because I think that I just convinced myself that people liked me because I was the fun friend. I was the one that they could rely on to go on a big night out with. I was convinced that that was the only thing that people really liked about me, and that's when I was at my best, is when I was partying and, you know, being the center of attention. And actually, like, now I've realised my friends really love me for me and all the other things that I bring to the table. And it's not about the fact that I could stay out till 4 a.m. and still be the life and soul of the party. So I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
I mean, if you still get invited everywhere, then you must be. It means you're actually more fun because you don't have to rely on something to make you fun.
Exactly. This is the argument I try and give. I'm like, I can still have a really good time and I don't need alcohol to do it. So how does that make me boring? And also, like, when I was drinking, every weekend was just getting pissed, being hungover, getting pissed, being hungover. Now, like, every weekend is like so different and so varied. I'm like, it's not boring at all.
I think that was one of the things that I spoke to my personal trainer about when I was preparing for the marathon. I was like, people think I'm weird, because I started off by doing dry January.
Yeah.
Using dry January as an excuse for sobriety.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, and he was like, no, people actually find it weird, like, you're lame if you drink now.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's not, he tells people not to drink on plans because it's not the alcohol that you're consuming, it's the choices you make after.
Yeah.
The food choices, the things like with boundaries that we were talking about. So it's not just what you're consuming, it's everything that comes after that.
100%, yeah. And the next day, like, I would wake up, I would be so hungover. I'm like, I'm ordering a Domino's at like 11 o'clock. And then like the entire day was a write-off. I would like shop to make me feel better. So I'd like just get straight on ASOS and be like, okay, what can I buy that's going to make me feel better? Like,
is that why the share price has gone down for ASOS, because you're sober?
I'm not buying as much anymore. That's why, because the next day, like, it's all those kind of choices that you make that follow it, really.
I used to do really weird stuff the next day if I had anxiety.
Yeah.
I'd clean behind the fridge freezer.
Yeah.
But my housemates find it weird.
Anxiety, and then like all your other traits come out of like things that you want to do.
I didn't think anxiety was a thing until people started unsending messages.
Yeah.
The next day, like, I'd get loads of Instagram notifications be like, someone's unsent a message, and I was like, anxiety.
It's 100% thing. So like, anxiety comes because of like many different reasons. So the first one is actually the chemicals in alcohol. So the way it kind of works when you drink is you get like, basically it affects your brain so that you feel really, really chill. But then the next day your brain has to like almost recalibrate. So it shoots the things that make you feel anxious. This is a really reductive explanation, but it almost shoots the balance backwards.
Right,
so
okay.
Because of that, you get a spike in like adrenaline and cortisol, and the next day you feel wired because your body is like, oh, hang on, we were too super chill. We are going to reset that. And it basically puts you on overdrive. It's like, I always say, it's like filling up a bathtub. So while you're drinking, the bathtub is just filling, you pull out the plug and it just shoots out the next day.
That
so
makes
like
so much sense.
Chemical wise, it's a thing, but then also because of blackout. So if you do drink and you black out, you will not remember things. So there's also that anxiety of like, I genuinely can't remember what I did, what I said. So you've kind of got like two angles to contend with. So anxiety is real, but not everyone gets it. Because I used to get it so bad, and I would talk to my friends, they'd be like, I don't understand why you're like asking me a million times if like you've pissed us all off. Like, they just didn't get it. Some people just don't get it.
Do you think it's because you pushed the boundaries of alcohol more than they did?
Yeah, quite likely. But also like alcohol affects everyone differently. So it affects men differently to women. It affects depending on your body type and your body composition. There's even evidence to show that like your race can have a factor. It can depend on what you eat that day. Like, there's so many things that influence how our body metabolizes alcohol that it can affect everyone differently.
Do you think being a woman and being sober has so many different kinds of conversations around it to than if you were a man and sober?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's also like a general stereotype school of thought that women drink more for emotional reasons. So like because they're really stressed, because they're heartbroken, those sort of things. And that men primarily their motivation for drinking is social. So it's the way that they can bond and open up with their friends. So I think there are kind of like different conversations when it comes to stopping drinking. Like for women, it's kind of more focused on, okay, how can you relax without booze? If you've had a really shit week at work, how can you like take the edge off? But the conversations from like the men I see speaking about sobriety, it's all about like, how do you go to the pub with your mates? Like, how do you actually have conversations with them when you are drinking? I think there's different kind of conversations that are like the top of the agenda for different people.
And I was saying to you earlier that I just feel like as a woman you couldn't win. Like
No.
if something happened to you, it's because you drank too much.
Yeah.
If you're sober, you're lame and you're boring and nobody wants to be your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
So then how do you win?
You can't win. But there's so many things in life like you just can't win. It's always that like peach analogy. If you can be the ripest, juiciest peach, and there'll always be someone who doesn't like peaches. Like I think you just can't win. And I think that is, to be fair, another thing that sobriety has like taught me about life generally is I'm like, I genuinely can't please everyone. I can put up a post and I will have one person saying, thank you so much, I needed to read this today, I've been really struggling. And I will have someone else being like, oh my God, I bet she's fun at parties. Like you just can't win in life in general.
My favourite thing to do when I've had a shit week is eat a tub of Haagen-Dazs and watch Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, I'm here for both of those things.
I love a good cartoon musical.
Yeah. Do you know what I've started doing? I bought myself a Nintendo Switch a couple of weeks ago and I've started playing Animal Crossing and it's the best decision I've ever made.
Do you know what? I'm going to start doing that because I've got an Xbox. So I'm going to start playing like random games now instead, just to unwind.
Yeah. My boyfriend's like, oh, you're right. I'm like, I'm just fishing on my little island. Like, you just feel like it's the best way to like just get out of your head.
I went through a really good phase of loving Mortal Kombat. So maybe that's what I need to do when I'm annoyed. But so when you came to setting up Sober Girl Society, you were 7 months sober. And you said briefly about like wanting to find your tribe and reach out to other people. Did you think it was going to be as big as it is?
No, I really didn't. Like I thought that there would be like a few of us that would chat and it just snowballed. So like we first of all did one meetup that we literally organised on like an email thread and like took everyone's deposits for what they wanted to eat that day. Like it was literally me on like emailing everyone individually. And then people came for the first one and I actually didn't think anyone would like turn up. And when they all came, I was like, this is amazing. There was like 20 of us in King's Cross. And then they all started posting about it. And then more people were saying, oh, I would love to come to something like this. So we would do another event and they just kept getting bigger and like growing. And then people would be like, can you bring it out to Manchester? Can you bring it out to Birmingham? So it just expanded. Like I never in a million years thought that there would be such a demand for it. And I know you were saying earlier, like there's a lot of kind of younger people asking questions. When I first started running the meetups, it was people that were like my age at the time. So I was like 26. So it was kind of like 26 to like 35. Now they are getting younger and younger, the people coming. I'm starting to feel like their mums slightly. Like
it's always the worst, isn't it?
I'm like, oh God. They'll come there like 18, 19 and it's just like incredible to see so many young people like embracing it.
Yeah, because when I was stalking your tagged post, I saw stuff about dry disco.
Yeah.
And I've heard about silent disco and all that stuff. I've never heard of dry disco.
Yeah. So dry disco, myself and Steph Ellswood, who is also sober, we were both on someone else's podcast. And when I went in, the girl, Sophie, she said, oh, I've just interviewed Steph. She was like, you two have to do something together. So like me and Steph messaged a bit afterwards. We were like, oh, let's jump on a Zoom call. And Steph runs these amazing like non-profit dance classes called Stay Sassy. And she was like, maybe we can do like a little Stay Sassy Sober Girl collab. And this is how the Zoom meeting started. And by the end of it, we were like, let's throw in an alcohol-free festival. And it just got wild. And then we went to see Ministry of Sound because both of us were like, wouldn't it be really cool if we can like hold it in an iconic club? And we went to see the venue and we were like, oh, we just want one room. And they were like, yeah, that's not how it works. You've got to get the whole venue. So we were like, right, looks like we're doing this.
Go hard or go home, you know?
Exactly. So yeah, we threw it and it was like 300 people. We had like dance classes, we had breathwork workshops, we had a free boozers bar, we had Ashley James DJing, we had like 2 amazing panel talks and it was just it was surreal. Like, it was so surreal just looking around, being like, when I first started, like, Sober Girl Society, there was like 20 people at a meetup, and now there's like 300 people in a room who are all curious about this topic, which is, yeah.
I mean, you had me at free open bar, regardless of whether it's booze or not.
Yeah.
I paid €9 for a Coke in Ibiza, so.
It is wild in Ibiza. There's no prices like it.
So like, you had me at free bar, but to see like 300 people in a room, like, I think if the music's what you want it to be, then you don't have to have alcohol to have fun.
And the fact it was all women as well. And I have never seen anything like it in terms of like the disco started. Girls were like taking their tops off, slut dropping. They were like all around each other in a circle.
They feel safe, that's what it is.
I've never seen a club environment like it, where people felt so at home to like be really sexy and like get on the floor and twerk and not worry that they were like being sexualized by other people, and to also not have alcohol. It was honestly just magical. At the end, I was just standing, probably looked like a right weirdo because I was just staring at people, but I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted, just to see like a room full of people like so happy and just dancing and not a drop of alcohol.
Was it aimed to, like, was the event aimed towards women, or did it just happen to be that women signed up?
Yeah, no, so we said women and anyone from the LGBT community was welcome. We just really wanted to provide like a fun, safe space. It's not to say in the future you might not open it up, but at the moment, like, that's kind of the audience that we wanted to accommodate. So yeah, it was targeted at women primarily.
No, I think that's probably one of the nice things. I think one of the hardest things as a woman sometimes when you go into a club is people being really sleazy and perverted and not taking no for an answer and stuff like that. So when you feel like there is a safe space and you're going to take the opportunity.
Yeah. You don't want to get on the floor and like twerk, and because you're worried about men looking around and being like, oh, look at her, she's just doing it for the attention. So like, to do it in a room full of women, everyone was like clapping and cheering, like, it was just unreal.
I'm coming to the next one.
Yeah, oh my god, please. So we're gonna have one in December. So I'll send
it's my birthday month.
Yes.
And December's the worst month as well in terms of people's relationships with alcohol. Like, mine in December is the worst.
Yeah. So
and then I think that's why.
Christmas party that you can come to.
See, and then like, that's nice to know that there's younger people as well, because I always feel like when you're worried about going to these events, that it's just going to be me in a room with 50-year-olds.
Yeah. And you also I think it's so ironic as well. Even when I stopped drinking, I was like, God, everyone I meet that is not going to drink is going to be so weird. Like, I don't know why. I just thought even that it was something that I was doing, that other people who didn't drink, I like still had that like internalized stigma that people who don't drink are weird. And actually I've just met the most like fun, normal, incredible people who are really just like, they partied too hard and now they've had to like rein it back in. Like, they're all super nice, super normal.
And you know what? I think one of the things people are doing it younger as well is that one of my friends is sober and has been sober for a long time. She was drinking at 12.
Yeah.
So by the time I started drinking, I was like, why are you sober? Like, I'm 18 now. What's going on? She was like, no, I did that just illegally very early on. Yeah. And that's probably why a lot of 19-year-olds probably like, I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah. I think there's like so many reasons why people are drinking less. I do think like social media has had, I think, a good and bad effect on it, in terms of like good because everything feels more accessible. Like, travel feels more accessible. Starting your own business feels more accessible. So like, people want to do those things instead of just going out and getting pissed every weekend. But also I think there's the other side of it, where there's that like fear of kind of instant documentation. Like, you'll go out, and when I went to uni, and I'm showing my age here, I used to take a digital camera out, and the next day would like plug it in, upload the photos to
onto Facebook
into an album, and could delete any that I didn't want. Now it's like within 2 minutes you might be like, I don't know, on someone's Snapchat, like snogging your co-worker. Like, it's really, there's that fear now, even like, oh God, if I go to like the races, I might end up like snapped on the Mail Online drinking a bottle of rosé, like my knickers up. Like, it's just a different world now. So I think there's like a lot of things, but I think also just the generation are more curious than ever about the things they're consuming. So whether that's the rise in like veganism or sustainability, we're a lot more conscious about what we're buying, what we're putting into our bodies. And I think also Gen Z are like the first, well, millennials and Gen Z are kind of the first generation to be like, why are we just doing stuff because it's always been done? Like, it's not just the way anymore. Actually, we want to question things and why we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's coming on to the Sober Girl Society handbook. It like skyrocketed into being a top seller. Like, is it on Amazon?
Yeah, well, yeah, you can get it in most bookstores these days.
So what was the purpose and reason for you wanting to make the handbook?
Yeah, so I read like a lot of sobriety books when I first stopped drinking, and so many of them were like incredible and so helpful. But I felt like there was kind of a couple of things missing. One being that there wasn't really anything of someone young. Like every book I read was kind of written by someone who was like 35 and older, which when I was 26, I was like, these people aren't relating to my life. So I wanted to write that. I thought that there wasn't really much around alcohol mental health. Like a lot of the books I read were really focused on addiction or the physical ramifications of drinking. There wasn't much on the kind of anxiety and the blackouts. So I wanted to write about that. And also I just wanted something really practical, because all the books were like people's stories and they were amazing to read. But then it kind of got to the conclusion of like, oh, sobriety, happy ever after. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, I've stopped drinking now, but how do I go to a sober festival? What do I do when I'm at a hen party and all those things? I wanted to make it like really practical in approach as well. So that was kind of like why I wanted to write it, really.
And what would somebody that had the handbook, what could they expect to get from it essentially?
Yeah, so it's like part memoir, part self-help. So it's a little bit about my story and why I started drinking and why we all start drinking really in general. And then it kind of goes into the mental health aspects, the physical health aspects. And then it's really just like practical. So every sober thing I've ever done, whether that's bottomless brunch, hen party, like festivals, it's like tips and practical advice, navigating friendships. There's also like lots of experts from other people and their stories. So I interviewed loads of sober girls and they kind of gave me their perspectives on a lot of different things. And there's a lot of like experts in there who talk about, you know, how to navigate grief or how to navigate sober sex, the benefits of sober sex. There's a whole chapter on sober sex. So yeah, there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, I think I when you were telling me that there was a whole chapter on sober sex, I feel like that's something that I'm going through, like the dating kind of phase now, and that's something that I'm more conscious about myself. So I think that's so good to know that there's something out there. And also I think it will like help alleviate a lot of young people's fears about losing friends, not being able to like maintain work relationships and, well, any form of relationship when there's booze involved.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Like hopefully you can highlight it and bookmark your favourite bit.
I'm going to be sat there reading about it on the tube now. People are going to be like, what's this girl reading? But yeah, no, I think that it's nice to know that, like you said, that a lot of people struggle with things when they can't find someone that's relatable to them or has a similar journey and experience to them. And even though, you know, our relationships with alcohol have been very different, even though some of the bits I had read, I was like, yeah, that's happened to me. Or yeah, I can relate to that. Or like, I know people that have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things when you start a journey is like, again, when you say with social media, about finding people you can relate to and speak to.
Yeah, because it can be isolating, especially like, I kind of liken it to if you're the only single one in your friendship group and they're all like married or engaged or whatever, they can't necessarily relate to what you're going through. So my friends, although supportive, they couldn't give me advice on things. They couldn't say, oh, this is the point when you should tell someone that you're going on a date with that you don't drink. Like, this is how you navigate dealing with your feelings instead of drinking. They just couldn't help. So finding people that do get it, I think it's just so important. And reading things like that and being like, oh my God, this person feels the same way I do.
So what tips would you give to somebody who wanted to support either a sober friend or a sober partner?
Yeah, I think celebrate them is one thing. Like, I love it when my friends are like, oh my God, like really proud of you because you hit XYZ milestone. I think knowing that they are really behind me is so lovely. But I think just asking them how they want to be supported. So it's someone's hen do, you're going away, say to them like, what would make you feel comfortable? Do you want us to like bring you alcohol-free drinks? Like, do you want to skip this part, or are you comfortable coming to this? Like, if you want to leave, do you want to just like go and not tell us? Like, just ask them what they're comfortable with. I think having like that kind of open conversation is really important. I think always make sure like you're including them in things. Like, even if they say no for the first like 6 months, they might not want to come out, but then they might hit 6 months and actually go, okay, I'm ready now. So don't like stop the invites come in, like keep inviting them. I think they're some of the like key things I'd say.
I guess it's like a fear thing as well when they're trying to like, when you first try to do something, it is very scary.
Yeah.
And then when you realize that, yeah, I'm strong enough mentally to be able to go out and do these things and not participate in certain aspects that I have no interest in.
Yeah.
And then I think that's one of the things that people worried, like, oh, I don't want the invite to stop coming, so I'm just going to participate in stuff I don't want to participate in. I think that's not a really important message you shared. And I think that another question I got is tips for people that want to be sober or like want to start moving into that, and how do they tell their friends?
Yeah. So the biggest tip I always say for like, if you want to be sober, is understand your relationship with alcohol. You cannot change your relationship with alcohol unless you understand why you're drinking in the first place. So there's a school of thought that people will drink for like 2 reasons, and most reasons will fall under this category. One is to increase pleasure. So you might drink because you enjoy the taste, because it makes you more confident, because it makes you happier. Or it's to reduce pain, which could be to reduce stress, to feel less insecure. So understanding why you drink is the route to changing it. So if you drink because you think it makes you more confident, then you need to look at, how do I be more confident without alcohol? Maybe read books on confidence, maybe go to confidence seminars and put yourself in scary situations. If you are drinking because you think that people like you more when you drink, then you need to really interrogate like why that is. Why do you feel like people only like you because you drink? If you drink because it's the only way you know how to have fun, look at other things that you might enjoy doing, like connect with hobbies that you used to. I think understanding why you drink is like the biggest way to changing it. So for like me, I drank because I was desperately insecure. I had a lot of like mental health issues. I was really struggling with anxiety. So when I stopped drinking, one of the best things I did was go to therapy, talk to people about it, went on medication, and that was so good. But for so long, I hadn't been dealing with those things. I'd just been drinking instead. So yeah, getting to the root cause is first way to change it.
That's really amazing. And I'm going to ask you a similar last question to what I ask all of my guests. What would you say to anybody that doubted your ability to stay sober based on the fact that you used to be a big party girl?
Oh, do you know what? I always use this. So are you a Friends fan?
I am a massive Friends fan.
Yeah. So there's a line where Rachel says, she's talking to her dad on the phone, like it's like the first episode, and she's like, what if I don't want to be a shoe? What if I want to be a hat?
You knew which one you were going to talk about. As soon as you said that, I was like, I know exactly which line.
And I wrote in the book, and I always think you can become anything that you want to be. If that's what you truly want to be, if you want to change your life, if you want to make a really, really positive change, you can do it. And all the naysayers, like Rachel's dad, like look at Rachel by the end of Friends, she's like living like without her dad's money. She can do it. And I think, I would just say to anyone, you can change the course of your life. You can change the trajectory. Like you just have to put your mind to it, really.
And I guess think about the people that are around you.
Yeah.
Like be around supportive people.
100%.
But congratulations on being over 5 years sober. Pregnancy or not, like congratulations on being 5 years sober. And I think it's amazing. And you know, even when I talk to people about you coming on the podcast, they're like, I don't know how she does it. So huge respect for you. And I really respect you for being open about a lot of the things that you've had to deal with in your journey to sobriety, even in the snippets of the book that I read. So yeah, massive kudos to you. And thank you for coming.
No, thank you so much for having me.